Good morning, Banter fam. I hope you're having a lovely day. I just have one message before we start the show today. Get your notepads out. Get them out because today is jam-packed with valuable info. You're in the right place because this is one show you do not want to miss. So get those notepads out. It's a seriously important show today that I am presenting to you guys. I will be covering how I personally identify undervalued layer 1 protocols, showing you the exact methods that I use to determine which L1s we should be buying in this market. It's a very competitive space. We've seen a lot of competition to become an Ethereum killer, but by using this data, we can gain an edge on the market and work out which L1s we should be deploying our capital into. It's going to be a jam-packed show today. Let's get straight into it. Get up, get out of bed. Let's go. Good morning, Banter fam. What a show I have planned for you guys today. Layer ones are the backbone of crypto, so I'm excited to jump in and discuss how I personally identify L1 narratives and how you guys can actually profit from writing these narratives, because honestly, it's probably the most important skill in crypto, being able to identify these L1s, because that is what the entire crypto ecosystem is built around. So in this video, I'll be going over which L1s are currently winning the race, which are providing the most valuable competition against Ethereum, and also giving you guys some context of how I personally research these layer ones. So honestly, let's just get straight into it. Let's get straight into layer one talk, because there is so much to talk about. The first thing I want to do is kind of explain what a layer one is. I'm sure a lot of you are aware, but also it's good to get some clarification on what a layer one is. So a layer one is effectively a network that acts as an infrastructure for applications, protocols, and networks to build on top of. So I like to think of it as the backbone of crypto, the backbone of blockchain, where you're able to build decentralized applications on top of to be able to run a successful network. So some examples of different L1s are Ethereum, Algo, Fantom, Luna. They are pretty much the backbone of the crypto space, and they're a super important technology to underpin crypto. Pretty much without crypto, without L1 power, the entire market couldn't operate. So we want to be positioning our bets around some of the strongest layer one narratives, because that is where you see the explosive growth. Over the past year, we've seen some insane gains across some of the L1s. They've been the strongest gainers in crypto, and it's a narrative that's super strong because they are the most utilized aspects of the crypto market right now. Anyone that uses crypto is going to need to use an L1 to interact with DeFi, to play blockchain games, to be able to interact with these ecosystems. L1s are powering it all. So it's a really big and important topic to go over. But there's a few issues with L1s, and that's why we don't have a perfect market and we don't have rational pricing at all times. And that is something called the scalability trilemma. So pretty much it's an issue with layer ones. Obviously, the entire point of a layer one is to be able to scale, to provide its service to a mass audience, and to be able to handle a lot of transaction volume on its chain. However, the issue is if you are going for scalability, so the ability to scale, you're going to be sacrificing something, either security or decentralization. So pretty much the winning blockchain is going to be the one that's able to solve all of these issues: scalability, security, and decentralization. The issue with Ethereum right now, and obviously that is one of the major, it is the major L1, and it's the and it's what popularized the L1 narrative, is that it's not entirely scalable. Obviously, we've seen a huge increase in gas fees because of the current mechanism that Ethereum is using, which is proof of work, and it's not quite proof of stake yet until Ethereum 2.0. So we've seen an issue across major blockchains, and I don't think any blockchain has fully ticked all three of these boxes yet, but that time is coming as each layer one is developing and slowly advancing. We have to remember where we actually are in the kind of cycle of crypto development. We're very early, and some of these blockchains have not been around for a long time. Fantom was founded in 2018. Ethereum's only been around for, I think, less than a decade. So we've had these L1s that haven't been around for a while, so that they haven't really been able to road test and fully scale to their full capabilities. So we are speculating on future technology growing, but that provides massive opportunities to be able to capitalize, because we can get in ahead of the curve and ahead of these changes and ahead of when these changes are implemented. So I want to go through and show you guys kind of how the L1 system is set up right now. Obviously, we discussed the trilemma, but right now Ethereum is the major L1. It's got the major backing behind it, the major funds, the major amount of support in terms of transactions. And then on the side, we have different ecosystems, other L1s like Avalanche, Fantom, Cardano, Cosmos, Solana, AVAX, and these are other L1s which are kind of helping take the load off Ethereum. Because obviously the issue with Ethereum, due to its scaling issues, is that it needs support. It needs to have other L1s coming in and providing some power, because even once Ethereum 2.0 launches, which has some nice scaling solutions, we're still going to need extra power with the mass influx of users that are going to be coming in to the blockchain ecosystem. So that is why we have these other L1 plays, which are extremely lucrative, because there is a massive demand for these plays in the space. Obviously, we've seen a major run-up from Ethereum itself, and we have to start with talking about Ethereum because it is the main L1, and it's pretty much the reason why a lot of these other blockchains are invented. Other blockchains were invented to solve the issues that Ethereum couldn't, or so far hasn't been able to. So we have to start with looking at Ethereum to get an idea of, what's kind of setting the bar right now. And obviously, we saw Ethereum come up to around $5,000, and it's pulled back to around $3,000 right now. So we've seen very good price action from Ethereum over the past few years, and it remains one of the strongest investments in crypto because it has that real user growth underpinning the network. But we do have the issue, obviously, of these gas fees. I don't know if any of you have tried to use the Ethereum network lately. It's absolute hell. Paying $100 to $200 every transaction. I mean, no thanks. How difficult does that make interacting with DeFi when we have to pay such a mass amount of gas fees per transaction? So we have seen a major shift away from Ethereum, which has kind of paved the way for these other blockchains, because in the interim, while Ethereum is working on ETH 2.0, we've seen other blockchains come in like Fantom, AVAX, Luna, and Solana, and kind of take some of Ethereum's market share, because whilst Ethereum is scaling, these other protocols have seen it as an opportunity to take advantage. So if we look at the statistics here behind how things are shifting, if we look at the TVL data, so the total value locked on all chains across Ethereum, BSC, Avalanche, Fantom, we can see that it's significantly becoming more diversified. If we look a year ago to February, this day in February, a year ago, Ethereum had 93% dominance over total value locked in DeFi. If we look at today, Ethereum is only less than 60% dominance in DeFi right now. So it's lost over 35% dominance in terms of total value locked, which is indicating that we are seeing a multi-chain future. I firmly believe that the future of crypto is multi-chain, and we're going to need multiple chains, multiple L1 power to come in and help bear some of the load that Ethereum is copying right now. So that is why there's opportunities in this space to capitalize. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you the tools to be able to identify undervalued L1s, to be able to profit off this narrative, because if you can learn to ride the L1 narrative, it is the main way to make money in crypto, as these L1s have thriving ecosystems that you can take advantage of. So we've seen this shift away from Ethereum, which is going to give us some opportunities. In today's show, I'm going to go through three major L1s that I really like, and the reasons that I like them, and also the data that I use to identify whether an L1 is undervalued. And I want to start with Luna, because that is one of the L1s that I really like and I think has the most potential. Technically, could be considered a layer 0. Layer 0s can have multiple chains operating off the multiple L1s operating off the base chain. But for the premise of this video, I will consider all these protocols as layer 1s, even though technically you could argue some are layer 0s. So the Terra blockchain is really a payment network designed to issue algorithmic stablecoins. So the way the Terra network is set up is you can create different stablecoins on the Terra blockchain, which enables you to facilitate payments. So it's a unique kind of angle because Terra isn't necessarily targeting the same audience as something like an Ethereum would be. It wants to be a major payment provider. So I like the fact that Luna has this unique angle because it can work in tandem with Ethereum. The thing with a lot of other L1s is that they're directly competing against Ethereum. I like how Luna kind of has this interoperable aspect where it's able to facilitate these payments. Stablecoin or DoQuan said that the stablecoin is the most important product in crypto, and I would tend to agree because Terra can actually harness the benefit of stablecoins and scale to provide a massive payments network. We've seen this successfully with Chai payments. We've seen Chai do over $6 billion in yearly transaction volume. It's a payments provider in South Korea, which gives us a real example of how the Terra blockchain can be used in real life. And it has over $6 billion yearly. It has over 2.5 million users, which is 5% of South Korea's population. So we can see potentially through Chai one example of how blockchain can be utilized. And that is one reason why I really like the Terra network, because it has this kind of real user growth underpinning the network. But the tokenomics are really what makes Luna stand out. And this is one of the reasons why I like it as one of the major competitors to Ethereum. And it's one of the reasons that I suggest everyone holds Luna in their portfolio, not financial advice, because the tokenomics are so well thought out. So basically, it relies on UST. And the more UST is minted, the more Luna is burnt. So for every $1 of UST minted, $1 of Luna is burnt. And this is really valuable because if UST can become one of the major stablecoins, as obviously it's a decentralized stablecoin, and that's a big narrative in the future, that will enable Luna's price to grow as more and more Luna is being burnt. So it's pretty genius tokenomics coming out of Luna, and it's one of the main reasons why Luna kind of separates itself from some of these other L1s. Other layer ones like Avalanche, they have a lot of emissions coming in the future through their validator nodes and staking, whereas Luna has some really nice deflationary tokenomics which set it apart. So that is my first tip. Make sure to look at the tokenomics of a project to see how tokens are distributed, burnt, and supplied. They're going to be really important factors when evaluating an L1, and it's one reason why I really like the Terra network. Just to summarize, and this thread is on my Twitter as well, which has some valuable information. It's pinned on Luna. When you're buying Luna, you're essentially betting on increased UST adoption and the increased use of the Terra network, because obviously that will lead to more Luna being burnt. I did a really good video on Luna staking a couple days ago if you want to check that out. But that is one of the first competitors that I really like. And there is multiple chains which are competing with Ethereum. We have BNB, we have ADA, Solana, AVAX, Terra, Fantom. Like, there is so many coming through, but you can't spread your bets across all of them. So you need to have conviction in a small amount of L1s that you really believe in, and then you can spread across their ecosystems, as I'll explain later. So Luna is the first one that I really like. The second L1 that I think has massive potential to be a huge disruptor in the space and genuinely compete with Ethereum is Avalanche. Avalanche's tech is really solid, and it's one of the top L1s in my opinion because of its use of subnets. So just to explain how the AVAX network works, it doesn't just operate across one plane. It has multiple subnets, X-chain, P-chain, and C-chain, which can create on the P-chain custom chains, which enables AVAX to scale because it has more flexibility and efficiency than other chains. So AVAX is really unique, and it has some really nice tech compared to some of these other blockchains because it's able to create these subnets which can take pressure off both the original network and also allow the chain added flexibility because every subnet can have a different use case. So I really like Avalanche's technology, and I guess that kind of leads me to the point of we have to identify what the strongest tech is. There's no use investing in an L1 if the tech isn't up to scratch. The first box you have to tick off when you're determining what L1 to purchase is the technology. Is it fast? Is it scalable? How many aspects of the trilemma does it tick, and also how can it scale in the future to become better. And Avalanche ticks all these boxes, or most of these boxes in my opinion, because it has some really nice technology which underpins the network. And due to this design, Avalanche can settle transactions in sub 2 seconds, which is crazy. But the thing is, every chain has a niche. Every single chain has its own kind of niche that it's aimed towards. And what I like about Avalanche is that it's flexible and it's versatile. We've seen a real increase in the TVL across Avalanche because it has such a strong DeFi narrative. So the first thing Avalanche has going for it is the strong DeFi narrative. Now, if you don't know how to evaluate this data, if you go into DeFi Llama and you click on chains, you can see the total value locked and the growth across chains compared to other L1s. I think it's a super valuable tool. I check DeFi Llama every single day because it allows us to look at how the chains are growing in terms of TVL. We see AVAX went up to $16 billion in TVL. It's now down to $11 billion, but it's seen such strong growth over the last year. I mean, this time last year, it didn't have any TVL. Just in a matter of months, it exploded to capture billions of dollars worth of liquidity. So the first thing I like about AVAX is its DeFi ecosystem, which is exploding. And here is my tip when it comes to L1s. Once you've identified which L1s are the strongest, then you can start diversifying into the ecosystem. So obviously, the benefit of owning an L1 is that you get exposure to the network growth of the layer 1 itself. But if you want to adopt a little more risk, then you can start diversifying into the DeFi ecosystems of each L1. And this is basically how I position my portfolio. I'll have, say, Fantom, AVAX, Luna, and then I will subset those chains, so those major holdings, with ecosystem holdings. I might pick 2 or 3 of my favorite ecosystem projects underneath each chain and farm them. So the good thing about Avalanche is it has a really strong DeFi ecosystem, which you can get involved in to earn passive income. We all know this is the DeFi show on Crypto Banter. I love passive income. I love farming and staking, and Avalanche offers this in spades, which is why I really like it. But it also has something else interesting, and that is the gaming. We can see here Krabata, for example, has $121 million locked. You know, I'm a firm believer, if you watched yesterday's show, that gaming is the future of a lot of these DeFi applications because it enables, through gaming, through good, well-created and games with nice UI, it enables those games to retain users. The thing with DeFi protocols is that a lot of users can get lost in the DeFi protocol because it's kind of boring and it's not the greatest for retention. Whereas through games, you can actually retain an audience and you can enhance your tokenomics through higher demand side factors. So I like Avalanche because it has great games on it. It has Krabata, it has DeFi Kingdoms coming to Avalanche. It's shown that it can actually host some of these major games, which is great because it has the DeFi, it has the gaming, it's starting to tick the boxes for me, it has the technology, which is why I really like Avalanche. So those are some of the boxes you want to be ticking when looking at an L1. But now I'm going to show you a tool which can be used to evaluate L1s in terms of price. Because the thing is, when we're looking at layer 1s, we want to be able to identify which ones are undervalued and which are actually offering better value in respect to the amount of revenue they're generating. Because the thing is with these layer 1s is that they are actually generating revenue through fee burns, and that enables us to get a better idea of what layer 1s are the most profitable. Because the most profitable layer 1s, just like a tech stock, for example, are going to be the most profitable investments for you to invest in. So one way we can actually capture this value, and it's kind of inaccurate right now because L1s are such a speculative topic because we're investing in future tech, right? So right now, they may not have the data to back it up, but we can start to see some of this data coming in through Token Terminal, which is a very, very good website for looking at DeFi fundamentals, and one I suggest checking out. It is a great website for statistics on L1s, and we can see on Token Terminal the top 4 L1s for price to earnings ratio. Now, if you're used to shares and if you've had experience in the share market, you'll know that price to earnings ratio takes the price of a stock and then it divides it by its earnings. So how much it's actually making, in this case, protocol revenue, to determine what is the most valuable investment in terms of cost versus earnings. So the good thing about the price to earnings ratio in crypto is we can start to get an idea of which L1s are the best value. Now, as I said, PE ratios are not exactly the most relevant thing in crypto right now, just because the amount of speculation that happens in the market. We're obviously betting on insane growth, and we've seen such insane growth in such a short amount of time that it's hard to speculate exactly on some of these valuations. But if we look at this chart here, we can see that Ethereum actually has the best PE ratio, 34.4 times compared to its market cap. Obviously, it has massive gas fees, which is one of the reasons why it's probably so low. But we can see that Fantom and Avalanche actually come in the top 4. So Ethereum, Helium, then Fantom, then Avalanche for PE ratio. So it's really interesting to me that Fantom is a top 5 blockchain for PE ratio, price to earnings. As I said, you can look at this on Token Terminal. Super interesting statistic right there that I wanted to show you guys. The other thing that we want to look at, as well as revenue, is development. Obviously, nothing happens in crypto without developers. The more developers that are developing on a chain, the more users a chain is able to acquire. As Rand so often talks about, we see this flow of funds where the development attracts users, which attract capital, VCs, which attract more liquidity, which eventually reflects in the price. So we see this flow of funds down the ladder, and the first way to determine where this flow of funds is starting is by looking at development data. So you have to look at which chains are the most developed on to be able to work out which chains will be the most successful in the future. It's such an important statistic. And there is actually a really good report on development data, which is on Electric Capital. So if you go into Electric Capital, you can look at, it's 130 slides, so there's so much to go through, the development data in DeFi. And there were some pretty stark developments that I realized from this development data, which was really eye-opening. And that's, look at the amount of developers actually on Ethereum, 3,500. We've seen an insane amount of developers on Polkadot, on Solana. Near protocols seen an uptick in development. So we can see some of these protocols are starting to really quickly increase how many developers they have. And the more developers we see increase, the more users that they're going to be able to attract down the line as the apps get more sophisticated and start to be able to attract more liquidity. So developer growth is the first place to start looking when we want to look at future trends. And we can see that some developers are really getting onboarded into Web3 and into these blockchains. So Forbes did a summary of this article, and they demonstrated that Terra, Solana, Near, and Fantom were actually the blockchains that grew the most in developers. So they're the chains that were able to accrue the most developers. If this site is using Electric Capital's data, so it's actually measuring on GitHub the amount of actions in order to determine what constitutes a full-time developer. So this data is based on Electric Capital's subset, so it may not necessarily be fully accurate, but it still gives us a good idea of how many developers are working on these chains. We can see that Fantom has grown 271%. It's interesting that the number of developers are actually quite low compared to other chains, but if we go off this growth rate, maybe we can start pricing in future growth in developers, because let's say Fantom is able to grow another 271% by next year, that means it can almost triple its developers again, so it's kind of exponential growth in development. So another interesting statistic to look at on Electric Capital is the development data. And now that I'm talking about Fantom, we have to go into Fantom, because I believe that Fantom is one of, if not the most undervalued L1 in crypto. And I'll show you the statistics that I personally use to verify my thesis here. It's no use me telling you Fantom's the most undervalued network, right? Because how are you guys going to be able to use that data in the future? I'm better off giving you the tools to be able to go on your own and work out and use these methods to be able to evaluate what is undervalued for yourself. So a little bit of alpha in this video to help you identify what is undervalued. But I'm going to start with Fantom for this example because it is a blockchain that I'm extremely familiar with and I have very high conviction towards. I believe it's one of the strongest narratives in crypto, and I really like Fantom. So firstly, just to give you a few reasons why I like it, and I have so many videos on this, so I won't go too much into the Fantom stuff today, but it's EVM compatible, which obviously means that it is Ethereum virtual machine compatible. So it's easy to deploy Ethereum dApps on Fantom, which is great. And you're able to bridge quite easily to and from Fantom from other networks, which is a really important part of onboarding users. Obviously, it has the 1 second time to finality. So it's able to do really fast transactions because it's able to settle transactions in around a second, which is, I think, one of the quickest in all of crypto. So it has extremely fast transactions. It's got the low fees, and it's really cheap to use, which is why we've seen it kind of emerge as the DeFi chain. And I think of Fantom as the DeFi chain, which is why we've seen such a massive growth over the last couple months in Fantom TVL, because people are realizing it's cheap, it's fast, it has the developers to back it up, and it has super interesting apps and some of the highest yields in crypto. I mean, if you're a true DeFi-Degen and you're not on Fantom, what are you doing? It is seriously the best place to be able to interact with DeFi apps. I used AVAX for a couple of weeks. I've been experimenting with Osmosis, Harmony One, Moonriver, and honestly, every time I come back to Fantom, it's like a breath of fresh air. Like, seriously, even no matter how many chains I use, I'm still swept away by how enjoyable the experience is on Fantom. And that's due to the factors that I just explained: how cheap it is, how fast it is, and also how interesting its ecosystem is with the high yields. So the Fantom TVL's done really, really, really well. Obviously, we saw the Solid Swap, Andre Cronje's project, inject a huge amount of TVL into the ecosystem pre-snapshot, but it's really bullish that we're able to kind of consolidate around $10 billion in TVL post-snapshot, which I think is a super bullish indicator. But I talk about Fantom TVL a lot, but there's a statistic which I don't talk about much. And this is fair value, FDV, which is fully diluted value. And this is basically how much a chain is worth factoring in future emissions and unlocks. So when we talk about market cap, it's not actually factoring in the amount of tokens that are to be emitted in the future. We're just talking about the amount that are circulating today and how much a chain is worth today. But Fantom has something really unique going for it, and that is the fact that it has most of its tokens in supply. It has over 80% of its tokens already in supply, and it has a 10x discrepancy to AVAX. So we can look at the Fantom daily transactions over 1 million. We can look at the AVAX transactions at 946K, but then at the same time, Fantom is 10x away from AVAX's fully diluted valuation. So it's crazy to me that there's such a discrepancy here. So if you guys want to learn how to use this tool yourself, it's super simple. All you need to do is go into CoinGecko, search in the project that you want to evaluate, for example, Fantom, which is actually performing quite well this week. And you can see its fully diluted valuation here is 6.6 billion. All right, that's cool, but we need to contextualize this against other layer ones, because the thing about evaluating L1 values is that you need to stack it up against other layer ones in order to work out whether we're over or undervalued. So if we look at Fantom at 6.6 billion and then compare it to one of the major L1s like AVAX, which is a comparable chain, we can see that AVAX's fully diluted is 68 billion. So there's a 10x discrepancy in fully diluted valuation between the two chains, which is honestly crazy in my opinion that there is such a discrepancy in price. What I use to look at price, because this is a super easy tool to use, is a website called Market Cap of. And you can go in, you can select token A, token B, and then we can see really easily in a nice interface what the difference is between the two tokens, which is a 4.36x. Based on the market cap. But if we take into account the fully diluted valuation, it's actually a 10x away from AVAX. So you have to keep in mind, you can't just look at these market caps on face value, because that is misleading. You have to look at fully diluted in order to get a better understanding of where a token sits in terms of its tokenomics. But obviously, you also have to factor in where those unlocks are coming from. Because if something has a lot of tokens to be diluted, it's not necessarily something to be scared of. You just have to take advantage of it, right? So AVAX might be paying a higher percentage yield to its stakers. So it might be emitting more tokens, but if you're staking them, you might be earning more as well. So make sure to look into the tokenomics of each project. You can do this on every project's white paper. Really simple way to do it. In their white paper, they will lay out the reasons and the rationale behind having the tokenomics that they have. And then you can use that data to decide whether you want to make an investment. And I just saw a comment there saying AVAX has more advanced technology than Fantom, and that is true. I 100% agree that AVAX's technology is impressive. I really like the design with these subnets. Obviously, Fantom is operating on more of a singular plane, so even though it's faster than AVAX right now, it may not have as great scalability, and it is more centralized. So you have to take into account the centralization of a chain, so many validators it has, in order to evaluate whether that chain is a good investment, because obviously we are trying to tick off the trilemma. We need scalability and security, but it also needs to be decentralized. And objectively, to be honest, Fantom, AVAX, Solana, like those three of the main chains are relatively not decentralized compared to Ethereum. Ethereum has the decentralization box ticked, but it's not a scalable. So there's going to be trade-offs because we're so early with this layer one technology. So we have to kind of make bets on which projects we think have good potential in the future to solve these problems. People ask me a lot, do I think it's a problem with Fantom? Yes, I think it's a bit of a problem, but I don't think it justifies where the market cap is right now. Like, even factoring in the centralization concerns, I still think 6 billion fully diluted is far too cheap. Like, if AVAX is 60 billion, I personally would put Fantom at least 20 to 30 billion, which would be a 4x from here. So that is kind of how I view Fantom and its price potential going forward. I didn't get to talk about every layer one today. Obviously, I just went through Fantom, AVAX, and Luna, and Ethereum, but there are so many great L1s, and that is the beauty of crypto. There's so much diversity in this market for you guys to be able to take advantage of. Obviously, we have, BNB, Cardano, Polkadot, all great chains. Like Polygon, it's a layer 2. We've got Nia, Algo, so there's a lot of good L1s out there, but you have to take into account the data that I showed you today. So TVL growth, you have to take into account the speed, the tech, the statistics behind the developers, the revenue, because all these factors are going to make up whether an L1 is a worthy investment in your portfolio. I'll be doing a part 2 to this video either tomorrow or next week, where I go in some of these other projects, because there is seriously so much to go over. But I just want to kind of end it on this, because obviously it's overwhelming with so many L1s. I kind of want to be able to contextualize how I play this market in terms of layer ones, so you guys can set up your portfolios in the most optimal way possible. So this is kind of how I would summarize my view on this topic. I like multiple L1s. I think Sol, Dot, Nia, etc. are great. Like, I really like these protocols, and they should perform very well, but at the same time, conviction's key for outsized returns. My big bets are on Fantom and Luna. I'm much deeper in these ecosystems, as that's where my belief lies. And this isn't to say that you shouldn't diversify across multiple L1s. I think a very good strategy in this market would be pick 5 to 10 layer ones that you really like, have them in your portfolio, and then spread out across their ecosystem projects. That's a simple way to play it. Personally, I'm very heavy in Fantom and Luna because I believe in those projects more than some of the others. Or, it's not that I don't believe in Sol. Like, I think Solana and Dot are great projects. I personally just don't have as much conviction because of the valuation. So it's all risk reward in crypto. There's no right or wrong. There's some great chains with great tech out there, which I love. But at the end of the day, you're allocating capital, so you need to be the most efficient with those capital allocations. So you need to choose which L1s you have conviction in, and that is where you want to really concentrate your bets, because if you make a concentrated bet and it performs well, you're going to get outsized returns. But I would recommend everyone to spread out across multiple L1s to take off some risk. I'm just a degen. I'll just admit, I'm just a bit of a degen. So I'm happy to go deep on Fantom and Luna, but for 99% of people, 5 to 10 L1s in your portfolio is probably a good place to sit. And that is where I'm going to end this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. We covered some of the strategies that I use to evaluate L1s and their tech. We covered some of the tools that I personally use, like Token Terminal, DeFi Llama, Coin Gecko, Electric Capital, to be able to see some of the data behind the layer ones and see how this narrative is shifting. As I said before, the future is multi-chain. We're going to need multiple of these L1s to come to fruition and advance their technology to be able to support the mass amount of capital and users coming into these ecosystems. So it all starts with the layer ones. You don't have DeFi without layer ones. You don't have gaming without layer ones. You don't have security protocols. You can't really do anything without layer ones. So that is the power where I am focusing my capital on, because I believe it is still one of the strongest narratives in crypto for outsized returns in the future. Make sure you smash the like button if you enjoyed this alpha. I will catch you tomorrow. I'm live every single day at 1:30 a.m. EST. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.